thank you for joining us this morning, your Wednesday midweek experience. My name is Becky Yorkel, and I am here to introduce to you our speaker for today is Reverend Arthur Hammons. We all know and love him, and he's going to share with us on the metaphysical interpretation of Daniel in the lion's den. So get comfortable, and here we go.
Hello, friends. I'm happy to be invited to share a little bit of information and hopefully some inspiration with you this morning, or it's universal, whatever time it is, wherever, since goes out. But I'm happy to be telling you one of my favorite Bible stories. I grew up with this story, and it wasn't until I was in my 20s that I learned the real meaning of the story. I had the regular meaning, but then I found the metaphysical meaning. And in unity and the philosophy of unity, we are metaphysicians, and we look at things metaphysically, not only our own life and our own circumstances and our own challenges, but also the Bible, which is our basic textbook. And the Bible is the story of how a soul unfolds. And today I wanted to tell you the story about Daniel and the lion's den. Now, there's a biblical account of this story. And to give you some history and tell you of the whole story, I'll just take a few minutes. Here we go. King Nebuchadnezzar ruled Babylon, and he made Daniel great and gave him many great gifts. And he made him to rule over the whole province of Babylon and to be chief governor over all the wise men in Babylon. Now, we're told that in Daniel, the second chapter, the 48th verse. Then Babylon, after Nebuchadnezzar put David in charge and made him great, Babylon was captured and conquered by the Persians, and King Nebuchadnezzar was put aside, and King Darius became the new king. And he was very fond of Daniel, and he realized that Daniel was fair and had already set up this practice with all the rulers and the powerful men of Babylon. And so he kept him in place, and he put Daniel over the ministers of state. And the ministers of state were jealous of Daniel, and they petitioned King Darius to decree that no one was to pray to anyone except to the king. And this would be for 30 days. And they knew they were setting Daniel up, but by giving this decree that no one was to pray to anyone save the king. And if they did during those 30 days, they would be put into the lion's den. Well, this was their way of destroying David. And they spied on David, we're told in the Bible, and they found him praying, and they told King Darius, and King Darius reputed his harsh command. He said, well, that's okay. We don't have to have the lion's den decree for Daniel. And so, but the ministers, they reminded him that Persian law, now that they were conquered by Persia, Persian law could not be altered, and that he had to do what he had decreed. So King Darius ordered Daniel to be cast into the lion's den. Now, of course, the lion's den was a place where they kept all the lions, and they would feed prisoners and bad people to the lions, and they would eat them. And so the lions knew what they were supposed to do, and to be put in the lion's den was just, it meant a death experience. So as King Darius was sending Daniel to the lion's den, he said to Daniel, he said, thy God, whom thou servest continually, he will deliver thee. That's in Daniel 6:16. And it seems to me that the king really liked Daniel, and he was trying to be encouraging, and and was sorry he had to do what he had to do. Well, the next morning, after a long night, the king went back to the lion's den, and he called Daniel, and Daniel promptly answered. He could hear his voice, and it was strong. And Daniel said, "My God hath sent his angel, and hath shut the lions' mouths, and they have not hurt me." That's Daniel 6:22. Well, uh, so Daniel was taken out of the den, and no manner of hurt was found upon him. That's Daniel 6:23. Well, how did Daniel do what he did? First of all, he acquired a mighty position. He had a great job. He had a lot of perks and gifts. His lifestyle was lavish. He probably had everything he wanted to eat and drink, and a lot of friends and a lot of power. But he did not misuse the power that he had, and he was grateful, and he always gave God the credit for his blessings. And with all these blessings, he continued to do what he knew to do to maintain this spiritual level that he was on. And what he did was he prayed 3 times a day before a window that faced Jerusalem. Now, this is in the Bible, and this is where those men found him in prayer at the open window facing Jerusalem. And this can be understood metaphysically. And I just love this because as metaphysicians, not only do we get the story of Daniel in the lion's den and his victory because of his loyalty to principles and to God, but also we get more than that because we're looking for more than that. And because we look, we find. We're seekers. And so as we seek this story, we find that it has some ingredients that can be metaphysically understood and appreciated. One of those, the towards Jerusalem, means that his mind was turned towards the spiritual thoughts centered on God. So he was centered on God. His mind was always in the direction, moved in the direction of spiritual thought. And then the number 3, prayed 3 times a day. 3 represents the Trinity. And that's the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. It's also spirit, soul, and body. And the way that I like to think of the Holy Spirit is God is the Father, you are the Son, the child of God, and so am I. And when I'm in that awareness that I am in God and God is in me, then I am whole. My spirit is whole. When something comes to distract me from maintaining and cultivating and harboring those kinds of thoughts, when something comes to separate me, then I am not whole. I'm in pieces and separate. I go to pieces. And so when we can put ourselves in God and find God where that God is put in us, then our spirit can be whole. And in that wholeness, then we can, as a whole unit, we can find answers and figure out solutions and possibilities that are endless. So this is what is the metaphysical representation of prayer and 3 days and towards Jerusalem. So that prayer is the whole man caught up in a spiritual cycle of thought. And it will behoove all of us to maintain this spiritual cycle of thought all the time and live in a pure state of grace and consciousness. And then as we do all the things that there are for us to do, we can do them uh, grounded in spirit. And this doesn't make us a religious person, it makes us a spiritual, and it helps us express the spiritual beingness that we are here to express. Well, Daniel, we're told, functioned in spiritual consciousness, and he was able to interpret dreams and visions. He interpreted the handwriting on the wall for Nebuchadnezzar and many other dreams and visions that uh, happened not only to King Nebuchadnezzar, but also during that time. And he had the gift of kind of being able to see what something meant. And then the clarity of seeing what it meant established the route. So this was the route that Daniel followed, following the light that shone through his awareness of God and finding God's presence within him by being illuminated and then letting the light shine on the challenge, the situation, the opportunity to reveal all the blessings and all the good. And now the light for Daniel or for any of us doesn't just shine on what we can do about a problem, but it also shines on what we can do about a blessing and maybe even interpret it or find more depth in it or find ways to multiply it or find what it's leading to next. And so letting the light shine works in every direction, both to reveal what's possible in negative situations as well as what's possible in positive situations. So he let his spirit illuminate his thoughts, and he shone his light on them to reveal their meaning. Now, you can discover whatever is necessary for you to know at this time by turning to your inner source of wisdom and let it light, brighten, illuminate your awareness. With that in mind, I have a little interpretation of what I think happened in the den with all those lions. I think that as they lowered Daniel in, the lions thought, oh, food. And I think that Daniel was so illumined and bright and let his light shine that he lit up the room. You've known people that a room would light up the minute they walk into it, whether it was real light or just energy. But I think, now this is just me, and I haven't read this anyplace else, and I this is completely original. I think that Daniel was so illuminated, represents light and illumination, the ability to see and interpret and understand. I think that he was so bright and illuminated that his brightness shone, and the lions went to sleep because they're nocturnal. And in the darkness of the den, with his light shining, they became drowsy, had no appetite, and went to sleep. Now that's just what I think. And I think that when I'm having moments of illumination, that the things that would eat me up uh, are not awake and they're not hungry because I've got something better going for me, the light of God indwelling, the light, the presence of God, all of that activity. So I think what happened in the lion's den was Daniel let spirit illuminate his thoughts. And as illumination, he let his light shine. And the lions were a nocturnal and they didn't have an appetite and they didn't hurt him, so that when morning came and they lowered the rope down to pull him up, he came up unharmed. I think also that Daniel was humble, and arrogance is the absence of innocence. So I think he was humble and I think he was innocent. He was not arrogant. He was enlightened, and enlightened and humility are equal in their weight as words. And Daniel told King Darius God has found innocence in me, and I was saved. That's Daniel 6:22. And beastly mentalities have no power to hurt you. So the beastly or the threat of beastly something coming and hurting you has no power to hurt you, especially when you let your light shine. So we're told then that to let our light shine, to be bright, and to rely on God, which is inspired wisdom, and to allow love and intelligence to show the way. And when your motivation is to shed light, to bless, to help, and to understand, you are open to divine intelligence. uh, And those that divine intelligence will come as thoughts that will then stir you to action. So I have a couple of little stories to tell. It Daniel said that an angel came to the lion's den, and I, I, I I'm reminded of angel stories. And just to be brief, one Thanksgiving several years ago, Virginia and I, and Virginia says to say hi to everybody. Virginia and I were having our family dinner, and 10 or 12 people, all of us together. And we did not want to go to the grocery store on Thanksgiving Day, but something happened or we needed something. So I'm at early in the morning, the turkey is cooking in the oven, and I go to the Vaughn's parking lot, and as I'm getting there, there's this big, huge truck driving really badly and real close to my back bumper, and goes around me on the wrong side of the road and up over the curb a little bit into the parking lot. And some guy gets out and goes in the grocery store. And so then I went in to get my one item, and it was quick and brief. And when I was coming out, this man who had been driving so poorly was getting in his great big truck. And I didn't take the time to think about what I was doing. I just did it. And I went over to him and stayed arm's length away in case he was going to punch me. And I said, I'm an angel. And he looked at me very peculiarly. And I said, yes, I'm a guardian angel. And I need to tell you that your driving is the way you have been driving this morning over the curb and passing that car and doing all the things you did. You're creating the law of averages, a meltdown, and something bad's going to happen to you if you continue to drive that way. And I need to just to tell you that it would be to your benefit if you were a little bit more careful. And so then, and he said, okay, thanks. And then he was putting his bag of groceries in his truck, and by the time I got to my truck, he was finished. And I was in a SUV. And as I looked in the rear view mirror, I was thinking, is he going to come over here and say something or what? But I realized he was looking around, and that we were the only two vehicles in the that part of the parking lot. And he was looking around, and so I just laid down in the seat so that my car looked empty, and he couldn't see me, and he didn't ever find me because I just stayed there until I heard him drive away. And I'm sure he was wondering, well, where could that have been an angel? What was that? So I just thought that was a funny little thing. And maybe I helped him or somebody that he would run over or run into. Maybe I did something good there. Well, a couple of weeks later, Virginia and I were in Las Vegas, and we go to Las Vegas for the rodeo that's there every December, first weeks in December, and to do Christmas shopping. And our kids come over and we stay in a timeshare, and it's a lot of fun. And so we were going through a casino, and we don't gamble. I don't know how to gamble, but well, I gamble every Sunday morning in my career, but we don't gamble. But you have to go through the casino to get to the restaurants and the shops. And on our way through the casino, there was a bar stool or a stool, and it had a phone on it. And I said, "Oh, Virginia, look, somebody's left their phone here. We've got to turn this in before someone finds it that would not turn it in." So we turned around and headed for the security desk. And I gave it to the security guy. And I said, "Somebody's going to be looking for this." And about then, a woman that was breathless and frightened looking came and said, "I've lost my phone. Has anyone turned one in?" And the security guard said, "Well, this gentleman just turned one in." And she said, "Oh, it's got to be mine." And he said, "Well, uh, if you'll call it and it rings, then I'll know it's yours." And her girlfriend didn't have her phone, and the security guard wasn't allowed to use his phone, but I had my phone. I was standing right there. So she gave me her number, and I punched it in and pushed the little green button. And sure enough, the phone that the security guard had, it rang. And he said, "Okay, lady, this is your phone. Here you go." And so then she said to me, "Thank you so much." She said, "My whole life, all my important information, phone numbers, everything, they're all on this phone, and I just can't thank you enough." And I said, and again, I don't know where this came from or what I was doing, but I just said, she said, I just want to thank you so much." And I said, "I'm an angel." and she and I thought maybe she'd somehow there'd be a connection where she'd say, "Oh yeah, well you sure were to me," or "You, I believe every word of it," or something. But she said, "Yeah, right." so so but I think you and I could be angelic, illuminated, luminous, bright, brilliant, aglow, if we tune in to this awareness that we and the Father are one, that as facing Jerusalem, that we connect with Spirit and do this 3 times a day, if not more, that we will be capable of having illumined, enlightened thoughts that will reveal for us and to us what we need to know and what we need to do, well, how we need to hang on and how we need to overcome. So this is about being illuminated and being a light in the presence of what could eat you up. And then also, I need to have a little word of caution here. There's a difference between being illuminated and being lit. And I've seen some lit people in my lifetime, but I've seen more illuminated people. And it was through serving at the Unity Church in El Cajon that illuminated people with bright eyes and hearts and minds, all of us working together, created something that is now your responsibility to create and maintain. And with illumination, you will all find the way to make it even better than it already is. I've enjoyed this time with you, and I hope to see you again someday soon. Bye bye.
There is strength within the sorrow. There is beauty in our tears. And you meet us in our mourning with a love that casts out fear. You are working in our waiting. you're sanctifying us. When beyond our understanding, you're teaching us to trust. Your plans are still to prosper. You have not forgotten us. You're with us in the fire and the flood. You're faithful forever, perfect in love. You are sovereign over us. You are wisdom unimagined. Who could understand your ways? Reigning high above the heavens, reaching down in endless grace. You're the lifter of the lowly, compassionate and kind. You surround me and uphold me. Your promises are my delight, and your plans are still to prosper. You have not forgotten us. You're with us in the fire and the flood. You're faithful forever, perfect in love. You are sovereign over us. Even when the enemy means for evil, you turn it for our good. You turn it for our good and for your glory. And even in the valley, you are faithful. You're working for our good. You're working for our good and for your glory. And even when the enemy means for evil, you turn it for our good. You turn it for our good and for your glory. And even in the valley, you are faithful. You're working for our good. You're working for our good and for our glory. Your plans are still to prosper. You have not forgotten us. You're with us in the fire and the flood. You're faithful forever, perfect in love. You are sovereign over us. You're perfect forever, perfect in love. You are sovereign over us. You are sovereign over us.
Thank you, Reverend Hammons, for that wonderful interpretation. And yes, we are all angels. So, speaking of that, let me lead you in a short meditation. So if you would get comfortable in your seat, breathe in, relax, breathe breathe out, let go. Breathe in, illumination, and release, elimination. We are connected to the divine in every way, all day, all night. We breathe in the light and we release the light. We live in this knowing that it is our birthright to be the angels in the light. As we continue to breathe in and out, and we sink deeper into this knowing, into this connection between us and all there is. And we know that this light surrounds us and protects us. It guides us and it lights our path, even in the dark. For this we are grateful. We continue to breathe in and out. We take all of the words that we heard and we allow them to settle in to our divine light. We rest in this knowing. And as we come back to this moment, to the here and the now, we know that we bring back with us all the truth of who we are, the light, the illumination, and the love. We continue to come back to this room and we open our eyes and we say thank you, thank you. Thank you for joining us today. Please leave us some comments so we know how you liked the talk, because we know you loved it. And give us some ideas if you'd like. It's fun to hear what you have to say, so leave us some comments below and join us again next week. Thank you so much. Namaste.